Okay, hello everybody. Today we're here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in the Chancellor 414. We are departing from Burke Lakefront, Bravo Kilo Lima, which is a freeware airport and perhaps one of the most amazing freeware airports I've ever downloaded. So we will get an extended look at that right at the beginning of the video. We were planning on a 306 nautical mile flight to Papa Whiskey Kilo, Chicago Executive, but we're not going to make it. Something that I didn't plan for in this video happens in flight, and I have to deal with it. So stay tuned to see how I handle it and where we end up. For this flight, we'll also be flying in a retro 1975 livery, which is a recreation of an actual Chancellor. So should be an awesome flight, and we've got a lot to cover. Let's hop into the pilot seat and get started. The latest version update of the Chancellor adds checklists to the built-in iPad and also restores click spots to the external walkaround. So we'll open up the passenger door, head outside, and do a quick walkaround. So we are carrying some luggage for me and my buddy Floyd. On the left wing, we'll secure the wing locker. Push that down and lock it. That looks good. We'll check our flaps, ailerons, and trim tab. Everything looks good. Normally we'd have the lights on here, so we'd check the nav light, strobe light, and landing lights. We'll check the fuel vent underneath the wing there, then head up and check our fuel quantity. That all looks good. Next we'll go underneath and check our intake and outtake. That looks good. Our engine compartment is secure. The left wheel looks good. We'll hop up here and check the oil on the left engine. And that meets the minimum for takeoff. That all looks good. We've got our engine covers removed. The spinner looks great. Our strut is in good condition. Our antenna is still attached. Over here, our heat exchanger inlet is clear. Pressure for emergency landing gear extension is in the green. We'll go up here and close and secure the nose lockers. All right, that looks good. Our nose wheel, strut, and tire looks good. We'll head over here on the right side of the plane. Got some luggage in there. We'll close the nose locker on this side. Underneath, our intake and outtake looks good. Our heat exchanger inlet looks good. Our tire looks good. Up to the oil on the right engine, and that is adequate. The front spinner and inlets all look good. On the bottom, have another look at the wheel. Over here, engine compartment is secure. This is the hydraulic fluid reservoir, so we'll open that up, and that all looks good. Underneath, inlet and outlet look good. We'll check the fuel on the right wing. Perfect. Our de-ice surfaces look good. All of our lights are functional. Wheel looks good. We'll close the right baggage compartment, wing locker. There we go. And lock that. All right, surfaces on the elevator and the rudder looks good. Our nav light looks good. The rudder gust lock is opened, and the surface on the left elevator looks good. I mentioned the awesome freeware airport of Lakefront, so let's have a detailed look at it now. that was amazing. That was clearly a labor of love, and the interior detail just kept on going. So let's bring up the in-game checklist on the iPad. We've got our seatbelt secure, our doors and windows are closed. We'll go down here and get the left and the right fuel selectors to the main fuel tank. Next, we'll head down and we will crack the throttle, open 1/8 of an inch. We'll bring the left and the right prop to full forward. There we go, a little hard to grab with the mouse. And the patch fixed the mixtures, so now I can actually click and move the mixture, so we'll bring both of those to full rich. I can see that the cowl flaps are pulled closed on the bottom. We're going to want those opened for engine start. So we'll head down to the 2 white levers there, click and turn them to unlock them, and the cowl flaps are now opened. Our pilot side circuit breakers all look good, and our co-pilot circuit breakers are all in. Head over to the panel here and flip up the battery. We'll check our fuel left and right, and we've got full fuel tanks for left and right. Fuel totalizer looks good and is set up. We'll advance to the engine start checklist, and it's actually pretty sparse on the iPad here. So we'll head down to the panel and turn on the left and the right alternator. We'll flip on the nav light so that they know that we're about to start. Clear prop. We'll flip up the magneto bar and get left-right magnetos on for the left and the right engine. We'll move the primer over to the left and prime the left engine. We'll press the left engine starter button. We're going to watch the RPM and the manifold pressure for the left engine. Alright, it looks like a good start, and as RPM comes above 1,000, then we'll turn on the left boost pump. There we go, that's on. We'll repeat the process for the right engine, so we'll prime the right engine first. We'll press the right engine starter. And we'll watch the right engine RPM and manifold pressure. And once RPMs climb above 1,000, then we'll turn on the right engine's fuel boost pump. Now that everything's stable, we'll flip up the avionics bus switch. We've got the freeware version of the GTN 750 by PMS 520. See the link in the video details if you'd like to download this. We'll start by going to the frequencies page for Lakefront, and that'll bring up our ATIS, clearance, ground, tower frequencies, which will make it a lot easier to enter that. There we go. So we'll dial those into COM 1 and COM 2. And on the right-hand page, we'll set up our flight plan. So we'll put in our origin and our destination airports of Lakefront and Chicago Executive. Now, in real life, the weather is just miserable from the mid to the east part of the country today. There's high winds, there's icing, there's all sorts of problems. So I'm not running with real weather because real weather is unflyable for this aircraft. Instead, I have an excellent freeware for weather presets that I'm using, so again, see the video details if you would like to download it. As an aside, I had a real-life flight lesson planned for today, and even though it was clear outside, my instructor called and was like, yep, no. We got gusting winds, and the winds are just crazy. Looks like it's going to calm down going into the remainder of the week, so hopefully I'll get to fly on Tuesday. Alright, as we get everything set up here and call clearance delivery to get our IFR clearance, let's open up Foreflight and I'll take you through the flight plan. Okay, after an initial radar vector to Kehoe, we're going to get on the Juliet 584 airway and fly at 20,000 feet and stay on that airway until we get to our destination. It's a nice straightforward flight plan. We will get off of Juliet 584 at OBK, and then from there we will request an RNAV approach, probably to runway 16, which looks like it's the runway that's in use currently. There are two reasons we're using the Juliet Airways as opposed to the low altitude Victor Airways. One is the Chancellor is just much more efficient at higher altitudes. And the second is it's a black hole of Victor Airways. There are almost no Victor Airways around Lakefront. It would be a very convoluted path to get vectored to the south and then make our way from the southeast to get to our destination on a Victor Airway. If you switch to the VFR sectional, it's easier to see where we're going. So we are crossing Lake Erie on departure. We're overflying the Detroit Bravo, and then we'll be crossing Lake Michigan before landing at Chicago Executive. We'll advance to the pre-taxi checklist. We'll head down here and we'll turn on the taxi light. Now I'd also turned off the nav light temporarily because the strobe was driving me crazy, so we'll turn that back on. The iPad has a temperature and wind display, and you can see that we have a minor crosswind to deal with. You can also see from the interior temperature display that Floyd and I are melting, so we're going to turn on the air conditioner. There we go. We'll set that to high, and you can see it pops up on the annunciator panel telling me that I've got the AC on. Lakefront ground, Chancellor 3752 Charlie, General Aviation Parking with information Tango request taxi. Taxi and hold short, runway 24 right via Golf Foxtrot, Chancellor 3752 Charlie. In addition to the freeware airports and the plugins for the weather, I'm also running with FS Traffic, which brings a lot of awesome contrails and other details to our environment. One or more of those is causing those stutters you just saw. I'm not quite sure which one, but it's not too bad. We've got liveatc.net streaming in the background, not a lot of GA activity going on today. When I set the weather to live initially for this flight, the snow was blowing horizontally, so that wasn't a good sign, and we switched it back to the preset. There's a nice run-up area over here on the right, so we're going to pull into that and do a short run-up. We'll do our mag checks, which are well modeled here in the Chancellor. We'll turn on our landing light and our strobes. Lakefront Tower, Chancellor 3752 Charlie, holding short, runway 24 right. Cleared for takeoff, runway 24 right, Chancellor 3752 Charlie. This looks like a fantastic airport to fly in and out of on the arrival end of 24 here. You're flying right over water and boats. And on the departure end, you're heading right past the city of Cleveland. So it just looks fantastic. While we're getting all lined up here and departing, I'll give you a quick update on my real-world flight lessons. So if you're new to the channel, I am a student pilot who's working on my private pilot's license. I fly Cessna Skyhawks. I have no idea how to fly a Cessna 414 twin, which we're flying in this video, so bear with me if I make some mistakes. But when last we left off, I was changing to a new instructor. I'm on number 3 because they keep getting hired by airlines. And I wanted to fly with him once out to the practice area in dual before I did my solo out to the practice area. Unfortunately, things just haven't cooperated. The weather has not cooperated. I had to cancel a lesson due to a work emergency, so just hasn't worked out. But if everything works out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I've got my dual with my flight instructor, and then if everything works out again, big if, Wednesday at 8 a.m., I've got my solo to the practice area. After that, we do a dual cross-country to an airport at least 50 nautical miles away, and then some night flying, and that leads up to my solo cross-country. Now that we're rolling into winter, I'm not quite sure how all of this is going to work because the sun sets at 4:45 and I work till 5. So getting lessons when there's still daylight out has been a challenge. Alright, we've got our radar vectors to our first waypoint, so we're doing a turn here and we'll be flying out over the water to Kehoe. I really did think I was flying to Chicago Executive at this point in the video, so everything that happens coming up was completely unplanned. Let's sit back and see what happens. I'm glad that landing wasn't perfect because if you watched it closely, you could see that's how an aircraft really lands. I came in with a little bit too much speed, leveled out just a few inches above the runway and held it there, and then had to bleed off all that speed floating for a while. And I had it, but if you watch the front nose wheel, you can see it turn to the left just before touchdown because I put a little bit of rudder input to try to straighten up the nose, and that actually pulled me off centerline. Let's talk about the emergency. The problem statement didn't make much sense to me because it was affecting both left and right engines equally with both the manifold pressure and EGT, and also the suction gauge, although other things that would be affected by those, such as the instruments driven by the suction gauge, were still functional. I suspected it was a sim glitch, but instead I played it straight, declared an emergency, and landed quickly at Detroit. What I think happened is the last version of the Chancellor had a glitch where you had to turn on auto mixture to set the mixture, and I think auto mixture was misbehaving, which was fluctuating EGT and manifold pressure. If you're familiar with 414s and can think of a real life reason that would happen, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click that like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Thanks, as always, for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.